A single gunshot cracks through the night. 5 elite military trainees laugh at the woman in ripped jeans. She looks like a drifter, until she steps into the diner with a stare sharp enough to slice bone. Her bag? Loaded. Her silence? Tactical. Her name? Sarah Matthews. They mocked a legend. And in 30 seconds, they'll beg to forget her name. The diner squats in the desert like a monument to American mediocrity, its aluminum siding bearing bullet holes from a drive-by shooting that happened before these trainees were born. Neon beer signs flicker against windows that reflect the souls of men who mistake uniforms for character, their light casting epileptic shadows across floors stained with the blood of better people than anyone currently breathing in this tin can of testosterone and stupidity. The air hangs thick with bacon grease, burnt dreams, and the metallic tang of gun oil that clings to every uniform like the scent of approaching extinction. Sarah Matthews navigates this ecosystem of predators with the fluid grace of something that evolved beyond human limitations, her platinum hair pulled back to reveal killing angles that would make a surgeon weep with envy. Derek Sullivan holds court at the largest booth like Napoleon addressing his generals, completely unaware that his empire is about to crumble around his perfectly polished boots. "Gentlemen, observe what happens when natural selection takes a coffee break," he announces, gesturing towards Sarah with the casual cruelty of someone whose biggest challenge was choosing which Ivy League school would best accommodate his sociopathic tendencies. His 4 disciples hang on every word like gospel, their synchronized laughter creating a symphony of ignorance that will soon become a requiem. Mark Chen occupies the outer edge of this circle of doom, his Korean features a masterpiece of suppressed guilt, as memories of burning Humvees and angelic rescuers war against loyalty to a squad that represents everything wrong with modern warfare. The letter Sarah carries bears seals that shouldn't exist, classifications that would make presidents sweat, and evidence that Colonel Holt has been selling American soldiers to the highest bidder for 2 decades. "Look at this pathetic specimen," Derek continues, his voice designed to provoke and humiliate. "Probably couldn't pass a fitness test if her life depended on it." The other patrons sense atmospheric pressure dropping like a barometer before a hurricane, conversations dying as they witness the moment before legends are born and myths become reality. Her wrist bears a tattoo partially visible beneath her jacket, a design that would make CIA operatives genuflect and NSA analysts wet themselves with terror. Ghost Unit. The death squad that never existed but carved its legend in the DNA of every terrorist organization on 6 continents. Have you ever watched someone mock their own executioner? Derek Sullivan's voice slices through ambient noise like a chainsaw through wedding cake, each syllable calculated for maximum psychological destruction and designed to provoke the exact response that will justify the violence he craves like a drug. "Sweetheart, did you take a wrong turn at the homeless shelter?" he calls out, his squad detonating into synchronized hyena laughter that sounds like souls being fed into a wood chipper. "This establishment serves food, not charity cases and participation trophies," another trainee adds, his words dripping with institutional misogyny that would make medieval witch hunters proud. The other diners become complicit through their cowardice, their silence transforming them from witnesses into accomplices in the systematic dehumanization of someone they've never bothered to truly see. Sarah maintains her position with the absolute stillness of a nuclear warhead awaiting activation codes, though beneath her threadbare exterior, something ancient and terrible begins to wake up like a hibernating dragon sensing fire. Her fingers caress the coffee cup with the gentle precision of someone who once used similar pressure to crush a Taliban commander's windpipe in a Kabul safe house while his bodyguards watched helplessly. "Having trouble processing simple English?" Derek taunts, his confidence growing like cancer as he mistakes her tactical silence for feminine weakness. Mark Chen experiences micro-seizures of recognition, stress fractures appearing in his psychological armor as Derek's words resurrect phantoms that should have stayed buried in Afghan graveyards. "Women like you are why superior soldiers come home in aluminum boxes," Derek continues, his verbal assault flowing like industrial acid designed to dissolve whatever remains of his target's self-worth. The words detonate against Sarah's defenses like armor-piercing rounds, because in the darkness of 3 a.m. when ghosts come calling, She sometimes wonders if this monster might be speaking truth about her failures and the prices others paid for her inadequacies. Mark's hands begin trembling like seismograph needles detecting approaching earthquakes as memories of burning metal and salvation clash against present loyalty to everything he thought he wanted to become. Derek's psychological torture achieves artistic perfection, his followers providing orchestrated approval as they feed off the energy of orchestrated destruction like vampires at a bloodletting ceremony. She probably washed out of basic training after her first night march, Derek laughs, his mockery unknowingly echoing the self-doubt that visits Sarah during killing hours when the dead return to ask why she survived while they didn't. The radio behind the counter erupts with static, and through electronic chaos comes the distant transmission of Colonel Holt's call sign, a reminder that some wars span decades and some debts accumulate compound interest until payment comes due in full. Mark Chen's breathing becomes irregular as stress transforms into recognition, then recognition into the crushing weight of unpaid debts that threaten to collapse his entire identity like a controlled demolition of the soul. Have you ever been underestimated by someone whose death you could orchestrate with a coffee stir? Violence erupts like a symphony of bone and blood as 3 construction workers decide Derek's mouth has been writing checks his skeleton can't cash, their work-hardened fists proving that authentic strength comes from building rather than destroying. The diner transforms into a battlefield where survival depends on reflexes earned in places where mistakes become obituaries, tables exploding into splinters, while plates cascade like ceramic shrapnel in a percussion concerto of destruction. "You Academy boys need education in basic manners," one worker snarls, his punch carrying accumulated rage from every honest man who has watched privileged sociopaths play dress-up in their grandfather's uniforms. Derek's squad responds with choreographed movements learned in sterile environments, but their theoretical perfection shatters against opponents who learned combat in environments where referees don't exist and second place means permanent residency in intensive care. Mark Chen's phone vibrates against his thigh like the heartbeat of approaching apocalypse, each pulse sending electrical terror through his central nervous system as dread builds like pressure in a reactor approaching meltdown. Time becomes elastic as his trembling fingers extract folded paper that represents his own damnation, the note unfolding in slow motion like a flower of betrayal blooming in his palm. The handwriting matches Sarah's letter with photographic precision, instructions written in the careful script of someone who orchestrates death like conducting orchestras, each word a note in a composition that ends with body counts and closed caskets. His face drains of pigmentation as comprehension detonates through his consciousness like a thermonuclear revelation. He has been nothing more than a marionette dancing to strings pulled by the same demon who destroyed the angel sitting 30 feet away. "Dear God, what have I become?" Mark whispers, staring at evidence of his transformation from saved to savior hunter. Sarah rises from her stool like resurrection given human form, her tactical assessment complete before her boots contact blood-slicked linoleum. Each forward step represents a conscious choice to honor the murdered rather than join them in whatever afterlife awaits soldiers who die for other men's profits. Her hands begin moving with surgical precision that transforms chaos into artistry, each technique flowing seamlessly into the next like movements in a ballet choreographed by violence and perfected through necessity, spanning multiple continents and countless enemies who learn too late that underestimating the wrong woman can be a terminal mistake. "Sweet Mother of Christ," Mark breathes, recognition finally achieving critical mass and detonating through years of institutional conditioning and deliberate ignorance. She's not human. She's something that learned to wear human skin. Fluorescent lights flicker like dying stars witnessing the birth of legends, their harsh illumination revealing the systematic disintegration of everything these boys believed about strength, weakness, and the fundamental nature of predators versus prey in ecosystems where only the apex survive. Could you maintain psychological stability while watching your entire understanding of reality collapse like a house of cards in a hurricane? The aftermath settles like radioactive fallout after reality has been restructured at the molecular level, revealing truths that will fundamentally reprogram the operating systems of everyone fortunate enough to survive the next 60 seconds. Sergeant Michael Rodriguez materializes from the kitchen like a specter emerging from classified nightmares, his weathered face bearing topographical scars that spell out stories in alphabets written with shrapnel and carved with enemy steel across 3 decades of conflicts that never appeared on CNN. His eyes achieved target lock on Sarah's face with the recognition reserved for witnessing mythological creatures manifest in the physical realm. "Holy Mary, Mother of God, and all the bleeding saints," he whispers, his voice carrying reverence typically reserved for divine apparitions and nuclear detonations. "You're the ghost, Sarah fucking Matthews, the Reaper of Kandahar, the Angel of Death with a Pentagon security clearance." The revelation propagates through the assembled crowd like a viral outbreak of impossibility, transforming their perception of unremarkable woman into something that belongs in classified files and recurring nightmares of enemy combatants across 6 continents. Derek Sullivan's worldview begins catastrophic structural failure as he realizes he has been performing for someone whose little finger contains more authentic lethality than his entire bloodline will accumulate across multiple generations. Rodriguez's testimony carries the weight of someone who has personally counted bodies and measured the cost of heroes in flag-draped aluminum and folded burial flags delivered to grieving widows. Ghost Unit never existed on official documentation, but they carved their legend in the genetic memory of every terrorist cell from Baghdad to Beijing. 3 of the finest soldiers this nation ever produced died in what the after-action reports called a training accident. Except accidents don't involve Syrian nerve agents and Russian mercenaries positioned for optimal kill zones. Each word tears through Sarah's emotional armor like depleted uranium rounds, every syllable a reminder of the night when honor died and vengeance was born in the flames of governmental betrayal. Mark Chen's psychological detonation achieves supernova intensity as guilt, recognition, and existential horror reach perfect fusion in his disintegrating soul. "I've been stalking her for 8 months, he confesses, his voice fragmenting like glass under pressure that exceeds engineering specifications. Colonel Holt provided surveillance equipment, location algorithms, behavioral analysis software, said she'd gone rogue, turned terrorist, started selling state secrets to fund her drug addiction. His hands develop seismic tremors as the magnitude of his betrayal achieves full comprehension. Afghanistan 2022, IED explosion, multiple enemy contact, vehicle fire spreading toward ammunition storage. She materialized from smoke and hellfire like something out of Revelations, pulled me from burning steel while rounds turned night into constellations of death. The memory strikes Sarah with the kinetic force of a close-range artillery detonation, Rodriguez's voice echoing across 7 years and 10,000 miles of accumulated guilt. Instructor, multiple KIA confirmed Chen's trapped in burning wreckage with approximately 90 seconds before ammunition cook-off. Matthews, you're our only shot at extraction before that vehicle becomes a crater. Past and present achieve temporal fusion as the acrid stench of burning fuel mingles with coffee shop aromatics to create a sensory cocktail that threatens to drag her consciousness back into the abyss, where heroes go to die and legends are born in blood and sacrifice. Tears stream down Mark's face like rivers of liquid shame as he comprehends the full scope of his transformation from rescued to rescuer hunter. Every movement, every breath, every moment of peace she's tried to steal, I've been transmitting coordinates to the same demon who orchestrated her team's execution and tried to bury the truth with their corpses. Sarah's evidence portfolio contains documentation that would topple governments and transform entire military hierarchies into prison populations, each page representing years of obsessive investigation and preparation for a war that has consumed every waking moment since her official death. "Ma'am," Rodriguez states with quiet reverence reserved for legends, "whatever campaign you're prosecuting, you command more allies than you realize." Derek sits amid the wreckage of his shattered reality, his voice barely achieving audibility. "I thought strength came from rank and privilege. I never understood it comes from surviving hell and choosing to keep fighting anyway. What happens when you discover you've been mocking a legend who could have terminated your existence with condiments and a coffee stirrer?" Sarah Matthews navigates the training facility like death incarnate wearing human camouflage, each strike a masterpiece of controlled lethality that represents decades of perfecting murder as an art form that transcends mere violence to achieve something approaching divine retribution. Acrid smoke from overloaded electrical systems mingles with copper-scented fear and industrial-strength terror, creating an atmospheric cocktail that belongs in the deepest circles of hell, where demons enroll for advanced courses in creative torture. Emergency lighting transforms the facility into an apocalyptic vision, where shadows perform dances of the damned while mechanical alarms provide rhythmic countdown to Judgment Day. Derek's final assault proves as pathetic as his previous attempts at relevance, his body achieving ground contact with wet sounds typically reserved for meat processing facilities and closed casket funerals. Each impact is precisely calculated to shatter not just skeletal structure, but the psychological foundations upon which his entire existence was constructed, like a house of cards in a hurricane. The facility's atmospheric systems circulate decades of accumulated secrets, institutional corruption, and the concentrated evil of men who profit from war, while others pay ultimate prices for their greed and ambition. Colonel James Holt emerges from his observation throne like Satan ascending from his own personal hell, footsteps creating mechanical percussion against metal grating with the precision of execution countdowns. Fluorescent illumination flickers like dying neurons in a brain experiencing terminal thoughts, casting intermittent shadows that transform his features between human and something fundamentally more monstrous. "Sarah, my supposedly deceased colleague," he purrs with conversational tone typically reserved for serial killers discussing weather patterns with intended victims. "Still conducting educational seminars for children, though your curriculum has evolved toward decidedly more terminal learning objectives." "James," Sarah responds, her voice carrying gravitational weight of 3 graves, 7 years of meticulous planning, and rage that has been refined into something more dangerous than weapons-grade plutonium. "You look exactly like what you've always been. A corpse that developed delusions of continued animation. Ozone from damaged electronics creates supernatural malevolence, as if the building itself recognizes it's about to witness the final movement of a symphony written in blood and orchestrated by betrayal." Holt's laughter echoes off concrete with the hollow resonance of death rattles disguised as amusement. "You cost me Rodriguez, Martinez, and Thompson," Sarah continues, their names escaping like incantations summoning murdered spirits back from whatever passes for military afterlife. "3 soldiers who trusted your orders, followed your commands, died for your profit margins and strategic advantages." Holt produces his dossier like a magician revealing his final trick, pages rustling with sounds of death warrants achieving legal status. "I remember the quarterly earnings their silence generated," he sneers with casual cruelty that measures human lives in financial statements and stock options. $37.4 million in arms sales, $62 million in classified intelligence, and approximately $150 million in strategic mineral rights across Afghanistan and Syria. Approaching helicopters create mechanical thunder that vibrates through structural steel and human bone, each rotor revolution marking another second closer to the moment when Sarah's 7-year war achieves its crescendo. "You should have remained deceased like an obedient little ghost," Holt snarls, his sidearm clearing leather with confidence born from never facing predators more dangerous than congressional oversight committees. Breaking bone echoes through the facility like gunshots, followed by steel finding flesh, and the surprised gasp of a monster discovering mortality applies to everyone, including him. As Holt collapses in expanding pools of his own corruption, Sarah retrieves intelligence that reveals names, locations, and operational details of Ghost Unit survivors marked for systematic extermination across 17 countries and 4 continents. Her footsteps create percussion symphonies through empty corridors as she uploads 7 years of accumulated evidence to every news outlet, intelligence agency, and military database on the planet. Electronic data transmission creating digital requiem for institutional corruption and the monsters it breeds. The facility's primary terminal blazes with crimson text that burns like hellfire against darkness. "Ghost Unit operational. The dead have risen. Judgment Day initiated. Hunting season declared open." Sarah pauses at the threshold between her past and whatever future awaits beyond these walls, speaking to shadows with finality that declares war on entire military-industrial complexes. "The dead don't stay buried forever, James. Some debts accumulate compound interest over time, and tonight the books balance in full." She closes her eyes, and suddenly temporal barriers dissolve. Martinez's infectious laughter echoing from fire bases in Kandahar. Thompson's proud smile as he shares pictures of his daughter taking first steps. Rodriguez's steady presence during their inaugural kill mission, in locations that don't exist on official maps. "Boys," I'm finally coming home, she whispers to spirits that have waited 7 years for justice. Just need to settle final accounts. The ledger requires balancing, and there's still so much red ink that needs washing away with appropriate currencies. Behind her, multiple countdown timers begin synchronized march toward zero, their coordinated beeping creating lullabies for those who believe they could escape consequences through rank and political connections. Security systems activate with mechanical precision, sealing exits and trapping anyone who might attempt escape before final reckoning arrives. Across the facility and spreading like wildfire across global networks, other ghosts begin resurrection from graves, both literal and metaphorical, their awakening marked by atmospheric pressure shifts that herald storms capable of washing worlds clean with blood and righteous fire. What happens when legends decide that some sins exceed the capacity of anything less than biblical retribution, delivered with compound interest and extreme prejudice?